the 8-year-old girl who survived that horrific bus accident in Limpopo, is now on her way to Botswana. 45 people died when the bus crashed last week. For more on this, let's bring in our SABC News International editor, Sophie Mokoena, who joins us now in studio. Great to see you as always, Ms. Sophie. Thanks for popping by. And we've watched almost aghast, holding our breath as we heard more details around what happened last week, Thursday, what happened to this young girl and the state she's in. What's the latest you've been able to ascertain around her?
As you pointed out in that intro and earlier on, our colleague in Limpopo speaking to the MEC, she is now on her way home, going to Botswana. She is flying from Limpopo to OR International Airport, and then she is going to be on a plane to Botswana before later this afternoon. And therefore, we expect that the authorities, the family members, will be at Gaborone International Airport to receive her. Here at the OR International Airport, you'll have the High Commissioner of Botswana and other officials, government officials from South Africa in relation to immigration and also health and social development, to give again that support until she is on that plane going back to Botswana. So clearly she is on her way to Botswana with her mother and also the uncle who came as per the request of Dr. Poppy Ramathuba, the MEC of Health of Limpopo, so that they can give her support. So she is in a company of those family members.
Yeah, this was certainly a big story in South Africa, but of course has obvious ties to Botswana. We understand all 45 of the people who died are Botswana nationals. From your vantage point, how have relations between these two countries been in trying to, at the very least, ascertain what happened, try to get the remains back to Botswana, and of course, accommodate the sole survivor?
I think Botswana was fortunate in a sense that South Africa experienced similar situations where the country had to repatriate either the bodies of the citizens of this country who perished during that collapse of the building, the church building in Lagos.
Right.
And therefore the pain that the country went through and the struggle that the government of South Africa had to experience when there was no proper communication and support by the authorities in Nigeria, taught South Africa a lesson that if anything similar to this does happen, you must know that you have to support that particular country and all those who are affected. And secondly, we would recall that when South Africa repatriated South African citizens from Wuhan during that COVID-19, they were sent to Limpopo for almost like quarantine for a long period of time, weeks. And therefore, Limpopo got another experience in terms of how to handle some of these issues that are related to cross-border and they involve health matters and the national government supporting. And therefore it was easy for the South African government to bring that experience and institutional memory, because in terms of the public service, you still have those officials who will be familiar with those processes. Even there has been changes in terms of political leadership. And therefore it was easy for Botswana to get support from South Africa on the ground with the Limpopo government, the national government, because you would also have to include national government issues of immigration, the Department of Home Affairs, Health, Social Development, DERCO, Justice. They will work together, and that working relationship did help because the child is now living, but the work will have to continue in terms of identifying those bodies that were bent beyond recognition. And this will involve the health processes and the science processes with DNA tests, and also with people with expertise, the pathologists from both countries.
And that's exactly what I was going to ask you next. I mean, if what the health minister had to say is anything to go by, a vast majority of the people who've been affected by this, who've died, are difficult to identify because of the nature of the accident itself. How much do we know about the process of those DNA tests and the likes? Because, and I'm only asking this because, you know, our DNA issues in this country are well documented. We know of incredibly long backlogs that prevent families from all walks of life from being able to get the kind of closure I imagine these families will be desperately needing.
Well, the MEC pointed out that they did get support from national government and they were able to beef up the team in Limpopo so that you can continue with issues related to South Africa with the cases that they had to deal with that has got nothing to do with the current case, and therefore they will continue with that. But there's that support to ensure that you are able to deal with these bodies, and with Botswana having completed the process to get the samples and samples now being delivered to South Africa. We're actually expecting that today some officials from Botswana and the samples will now be available for South Africa to really work on this process, and therefore that working relationship is quite important. We saw yesterday in Botswana that the government and also the church had a meeting with the family or the community Mokoena who are affected because it's one village where you have this clan and they are almost relatives and having to deal with this, but they were able to give those samples to the government of Botswana, and then now it's South Africa playing that important role to ensure that the process does start, and it will of course take time because it's not something that you can do overnight.
Absolutely. It's a tragic story and heavy to talk about still, days after it took place. Sophie Mokoena, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. Appreciate your popping by to give us that very vital update. Sophie Mokoena, of course, the SABC News International Editor, as we continue watching that story continuing to unfold.